One is from Jeff Cox, who's a specialist in the development of social firms. And he comes from the cooperative movement. He used to run whole food stores or whole food cooperatives. Yeah. But he has a stakeholder model limited which has 3 types of shareholder. Yeah. Stewardship shares are pretty much like charity trustees. They sit on the board in order to protect the social mission of the organisation. But you have partnership shares and customer shares for the workforce and the customer base. Yeah. And they can buy those shares and they get a dividend on them like any other shareholder. And investment shares are for people who don't have a trading relationship or a working relationship with the organisation but nevertheless want to support it. So the dividends are shared out between the partners and the customers and the investment shareholders, not unlike that early producer co-op they talked about, where the money went 50% to the labour force and 50% to the people who put the money in. Cooperative movement have produced a number of different models, one of which is the kick model, and although that's one member, one vote, yeah, within these model rules are commitments to consult with employees, funders, suppliers, customers and community representatives. So there's a stakeholder flavour to the articles, the way that the articles get written up, even though they don't reflect that in the shareholding arrangement. And then the other two, the Newco model was created by somebody who became social entrepreneur for Yorkshire and Humber in 2008 called Morgan Killick. He was backed by a community economic development unit in Sheffield, and they came up with the idea of a new company model. Yeah. And this one favours the entrepreneur. Yeah. In his case, he said the person who sets up the business or the group who set up the business are entitled to a decent shareholding in that business, and hopefully to generate rewards from it. But it had to be less than 50%. So in his model, the entrepreneur or the entrepreneurial group take around 46% of the shares. Others are sold to customers, so he does work for social economy organisations. They provide IT services, so their customers have shareholdings. Yeah. The staff have a small chunk, which is now going to grow because they're buying out the social economy organisations. They've realised over a long period of time that the employee shareholding does need to be larger. So, and then they introduced the Class D shares, which he thinks with retrospect wasn't a particularly good idea. But nevertheless, it generated a little bit of capital for them at a particular point in time. Yeah. And then last, my own models, which, Tim, we're going to discuss this afternoon how that gets applied in some of the student social enterprises here. Quite similar to Jeff Cox's at the beginning. You have one set of shares for the people who are setting up the business so that they can protect the social mission. Shares for those who provide the labour, shares for those who provide the investment, and by default the proceeds or the benefits are distributed 50-50 between those who provide the labour and those who provide the investment. But you can vary. The difference between that model and Jeff Cox's model is in Jeff Cox's model they have 1/3 of the votes each in general meeting. In the surplus sharing model, it's one shareholder, one vote, or one stakeholder, one vote. So you run an egalitarian general meeting for decision-making purposes, but you do have special arrangements. If somebody's concerned that something's going to fundamentally change the nature of the organisation, you can put it to a special resolution where you have to have a majority of each of those groups in favour. But by and large, it's easy to run your general meetings under the surplus sharing rules. Okay, and I think that's pretty much it. So, talk about whatever you want to talk about.